Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be fuck-up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Put chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello, and welcome to Occultae Veritatis podcast. I'm Ood Gallifrey.
I'm Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
And last, but certainly not least.
Not last
no,
yet.
I'm not last either. Oh, hi, I'm Richard Bigley. I'm fourth, but certainly not least. Or last.
And the little guy that's living inside of our sound equipment. Who are you?
I have a bum, and I'm the demon.
Yeah.
Yes, we have established that he has a bum.
Canonically, I am only a small ball of electricity that floats among all of these switches and wires, but also I have an anus.
Yeah. Which one of the ports is your anus?
I'm not telling you that. You're going to put shit in
You figure it out yourself, buddy.
That's a little bit
go on an
personal.
exploratory mission.
I don't ask which hole's your hole. Like, shut the fuck up. Do your episode.
Just accept it.
Do your episode.
I have been told. Well, last time we looked at how the city cops of Saskatoon dealt with Neil Stonechild, which is mostly, it's seemingly...
They didn't.
There was a lot of cover-ups, there was a lot of indifference, there was a lot of them doing things that wasn't the way they usually do them, such as like giving clothes to the family. Like, there's a bunch of sneaky shit. Listen to the past two episodes if you want to find out just how little they seem to care about the death of this young man.
I can sum it up in yikes and sneaky shit.
Yeah. But today we're going to look into what the other class of cops in Canada, what they did about it. This is the RCMP, the federal police. Equivalent, sort of, to the FBI, state cops. Basically, the RCMP coming in is a sign that bigger guns are being brought in. That would be nice if that happened. But yeah, they became involved at some point. And again, we're drinking 016. How is the 016 tasting after 2 or 3 cans?
Still great.
I think it's 4 or 5 cans.
Yeah.
No, I'm only on 3, but I also had another beer before.
This is better. Whoever's listening is going to like whoever listens to these episodes sequentially are going to find this to be a very interesting episode because we get progressively more and more louder and intoxicated as things go on.
I'm not sorry.
Exactly. Just like that, It happens.
I'll point out there are 5 remaining, and it was a 2-4, so, yeah.
Most of that was Filger's, though.
That's math.
No, he's been very responsible.
I have been. I mean, I'm pretty fucking high right now, but...
You're not too high.
At least you're still here.
Yeah, at least you're not laying down for a nap.
Okay, but before the charcoal lemonade, we have to talk about just how the RCMP dealt with the Neil Stonechild case.
Right.
So, this is the Occultae Veritatis podcast. I'm Ood Gallifrey, standing in a field in northern Saskatoon with...
Leon Filger.
Why the fuck do you always... I'm supposed to be second.
Okay, sorry.
Sage Murray.
Yeah.
Richard Bigley.
And with us...
Geo.
And of course the radio demon.
I'm going to talk into Leon's mic. I love you.
As you probably already know, because we've probably already got a couple episodes of it out already, we did a long episode about Neil Stonechild, and a long warranted episode. And we thought that it wouldn't really be complete unless we visited the spot where the police left him. We really want to absorb the gravity of what happened here, absorb the consequences of government agents doing terrible things to Indigenous people, and this is just one of the results of their action. So we're here. We're on 57th Street in Saskatoon.
So you can imagine back when Neil Stonechild was left here to freeze, none of these buildings existed.
Yeah, none of these buildings existed.
This was the middle of fucking nowhere.
There's aerial photos available that compared what it looked like then to what it looks like now.
Right.
And I mean, again, even today, there's absolutely no reason why, despite what the officers at the time may have suggested, there's absolutely no reason why he would even be here.
Yeah.
No.
And like, for those of you that don't live in Saskatoon, I think we mentioned this in the episode, but I just want to reiterate now, there are no restaurants. Even in today's, there are no coffee shops nearby. There's no residential areas. This is all industrial zone.
Yep.
If you leave someone here in the middle of winter, you're doing it to harm them.
Yeah.
I believe our radio demon has the GPS coordinates.
There's also a cop plane that's been circling us.
Yes. Yeah, our wonderful city of Saskatoon, and its police service has decided to dedicate a bunch of its funds towards having a police plane flying overhead with a camera pointed below, and it appears that camera's pointed at us tonight.
It's called the Eagle Unit, Enhanced Air Guided Law Enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're walking down a field just in between a couple of warehouses. You know, during the work week, these would be populated, but they're very empty now. And back when Neil Stonechild was left here, even these buildings weren't around. It was literally just a field.
So it's basically just chain link fence and barbed wire in front of us.
Yeah.
It's a sad place to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was right here.
Yeah.
There's just like power lines, chain link fence with razor wire on it.
Industrial stuff.
Yeah.
You know, agriculture implements and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's literally no reason to ever drop anyone here for any reason.
Yeah.
I just, you know, in a free and fair society, nobody should have to be brutalized or die alone or be put through torture just because they were born a certain culture or a certain race. But that's exactly what happened to Neil.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is the end result of a very brutal and unfair system.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It doesn't seem very motivated to change.
It's very cold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even like I'm wearing a sweater, a couple t-shirts, and do you remember what Neil had on that night? It wasn't much.
It was like a t-shirt and a jacket. They found him missing a shoe. They are very interested in us.
They are. If we stay here long enough, police will show up.
Well, they're probably on their way, and they're probably going to track our cars when we head out, so
Ready?
wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. What are you doing in this field? Naloxone training.
Yeah.
We're certified. I've got my kit in my purse.
You know, we get to return to our vehicles after being just briefly chilly, and you know, I can't help but be struck by the contrast how he died cold, alone, and in pain because of the decisions of the Saskatoon Police Department.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sobering.
Yeah. And like, I was even thinking, like, we were talking about maybe the police might pull up here, but we'd probably turn out okay.
Well, we're all white. We'd be fine to be like, oh, hey, sorry.
Hey, would you like to talk about this on our podcast? You know, would be like the response.
Yeah.
You know, and of course by that point they'd probably say, get off the property or whatever. But we'd probably turn out okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so on location for Occultae Veritatis, I'm Oud Gallifrey.
They'd Murray.
Leon Filger.
Geo.
Richard Bigley.
And the soundboard demon. So Officer McFadden. One of those. Officer doesn't really cover it. The RCMP is built much like a military corps, where there's certain ranks, and the ranks that go up, as they go up in authority, they're in charge of more people, they have more power, they have more sway within the organization. He was a 2IC for the F Division.
Second in command for the F Division. That's what 2IC means.
Yeah.
Second in command. He's not the guy in charge of F Division, which is the entire province of Saskatchewan, but rather the second in command of the province of Saskatchewan, which is still pretty high in the RCMP ranks.
Yeah, it's a pretty big fucking deal.
It's a fucking deal.
Yeah.
You know?
He was brought in by the Ministry of Justice to investigate what happened to Daryl Knight. He was also to investigate Rodney Nastis and Lawrence Wagner, 2 other freezing deaths in Saskatoon. This started Project Ferric. Project Ferric cost around $750,000, in addition to the usual salaries of the officers and RCMP staff involved. It was an expensive investigation. They took on the Stonechild case in February of 2000. The RCMP interviewed about 200 witnesses in relation to this case. They measured the marks on Stonechild's nose in post-mortem photographs taken of him, and to compare them to measurement of the Saskatoon police handcuffs in use at the time. This job is called a photogrammerist.
Cool.
I'm that.
And again, this is kind of something I touched on the forensic pseudoscience episode. So this is a person that I'm sure is practiced. Like, this is a job that they've done before. But they're still a human with human flaws and just using their human eyes to go over one picture and another and comparing marks.
As opposed to elf eyes.
Yeah.
Legolas, tell me what your elf eyes see.
Yeah, they do not get advantage on spot rolls.
No.
So the job is called a photogrammerist, and the guy the RCMP called in was named Gary Robertson. The RCMP had Stonechild's body exhumed, so dug back up, and a second autopsy was done by Dr. Graham Dowling. The RCMP were continuously in contact with the Saskatoon Police, and they found the Saskatoon Police to be professional and cooperative with the investigation. The RCMP say that. The RCMP provided their findings to the Department of Justice in June of 2002. In August of 2002, the department wrote back and was not recommending charges. They were not recommending any charges be placed upon the officers involved, or anybody else involved. In July 2003...
You say July?
July.
In July 2003, Deputy Chief Wicks contacted the RCMP about his objections to Gary Robertson's assessment. He wanted a new one done. Apparently that's just something you can do if you aren't happy with a report. You can just request, hey, you didn't do it right, I don't like the conclusion, redo it.
Well, you always can get a second opinion on pretty much anything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't like this. Well, okay, second opinion, you get someone else in, and presumably they're,
right.
They'll side with you, and then whatever, you know.
Yeah. In general, I'm very in favor of second opinions. I just wish they were offered more often to citizens rather than just when cops are trying to get out of trouble. You know,
hot take.
You know, it seems like it's like I said, more tools, less scrutiny is offered to police when they get in quote unquote trouble than do citizens. Like, if second opinions were allowed in citizen cases more often, then I'd be more happy with it.
Well, I mean, I think second opinions are permitted. It's just the issue is that if you are a citizen, instead of having billion-dollar budgets out of taxpayer money, you get your whatever your income is, and you've got to pay for that in addition to your lawyer.
Yes, which is not feasible for lots of people. Yeah,
which is why I think a lot of citizens don't actually have second opinions, is just on that basis that can I afford the guy from Minneapolis to fly to Saskatoon to review this sample or review this case and provide an opinion that counters what the state has come up with. You know, it's one of those failures of the justice system, I think.
As a comfortably middle class family between me and Mr. Sage Murray, we couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
And that's not we're comfortably middle class, not
one of y'all would have to be in some serious fucking shit for you to want to expel that kind of cash to get off of something.
It would be a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and looking at expert testimony, knowing how much these people are paid, getting an expert for $100 an hour for 40 hours a week for the months it may take for a court case. Like, for $100 an hour for an expert testimony is a fucking bargain. Like, usually most of these guys charge $300, $400, $500, $800 an hour for their opinion.
Yeah.
And like class justice, all that good shit. So the RCMP wanted a new one done. They wanted a second opinion. So Frodo
at the Shire.
Photogrammetry is described as the science and engineering of taking measurements from imaging. For example, photos, but electronic records also count. So taking measurements of like waveforms, of radar sheets, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Gary is super into this, Gary Robertson. He got a diploma in 1973. He was employed by the government of Canada from 1976 to 1980, doing close-range photogrammetry at historic buildings. He wrote articles on the topic. He taught police courses on the subject. He seemed to be practiced in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the realm of study is valid or not on a scientific basis, either or, he had a lot of experience doing this.
Right.
Commissioner Council tried to discredit him. They dug up past cases where he was challenged in his ability. They questioned his curriculum vitae. Well, what's curriculum vitae?
Like a resume.
It's like an extended resume.
Okay, as it appeared to bolster his qualifications to suggest more than what he had obtained in training.
Okay.
However, what mattered was his measurements taken. This is where it mattered. He was asked to provide measurements based on photos. He was not told in advance about the marks being suspected from the handcuffs. When he did his original measurements, he knew nothing of the handcuffs. After this, he was provided handcuffs and asked to measure them. He testified that the marks on Stonechild's nose would be consistent with forceful application of the handcuffs.
Can I pause you there? I just want to interject what that means.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the concept of brass knuckles, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, as a cop, you don't generally carry brass knuckles, but you do carry handcuffs. And if one were so inclined as a cop who has handcuffs, you could, use them as brass knuckle substitutes. And so that is where the concern over the marks on Stonechild nose comes about. That it was perhaps, suggested that Stonechild was, that the police had used their handcuffs as brass knuckles prior to abandoning Stonechild in the north end of the city.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that cops are taught. There's a lot of erectile nerve-filled tissue in the nose, and it hurts when it gets bopped. And that's something that the police are taught in the academy. If you need to do pain compliance, if you need somebody to do something, you make them feel pain. And one of the ways you can make them feel pain is go for the bridge of the nose.
Yeah, fuck. I've had my son just sitting on my lap and put his head back.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts like a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
They teach us that in demon school, how to make people get tortured.
Yeah, it's it hurts when it's coming from like a baby.
Sounds like your cops will fit right in when they get down here.
So Gary prepared photos with the handcuffs superimposed over the marks. The inquiry accepted Gary's testimony as the likely cause of the marks. When Constable Jarvis, the original investigator, was shown photos in 2000 of the marks, he also said it was consistent with handcuff marks. Here is a listing of the medical evidence. From Dr. Brian Fern, I like that. A coroner appointed to the Stonechild investigation. That's Dr. Fern. He started his practice in 1961 and he moved to Saskatoon in 1970, and he's been here ever since.
Is he still alive?
Maybe.
I don't know. Probably.
His testimony indicated that a coroner would be called in if a death was suspected to not be entirely due to natural causes. He indicated that when he was called to the scene of Neil Stonechild, his primary role was to ID the body. Police were generally responsible for further investigation. So all he was given to do was to identify the body. He wasn't asked to do any type of homicide inspection of the body as a medical expert. He told the inquiry that when he was called out, the police told him that the deceased person was a young offender and that the officers knew the deceased's identity. However, when compared to his notes of the call, he noted that the police told him the person was about 30 years old.
Oh.
He was 17 at the time.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, he was a little baby.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fern is alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sort of holds parallels to some of what like black people go through in the States, where as soon as they start to look sort of like a man in their late teens, they're considered to be like, an adult offender. Like that's sort of they're treated by the police.
Whereas if it was a white guy, he would be a juvenile offender.
Yeah, he'd be just a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He indicated the body was quite frozen and didn't notice any wounds or cuts on Stonechild's face. The frozen nature of the body may have contributed to Fern not seeing the marks on the face. He requested the body be moved to St. Paul's Hospital for an autopsy, where Dr. Jack Adolph would conduct it.
I was born at St. Paul's Hospital.
Really?
I was.
I think I was born at RUH.
I was born at City.
Well, nobody's perfect.
I was born in North Battleford.
My son was born at RUH.
I was born in the pits of hell. But Arthur was born in RUH.
Yeah.
Dr. Brian Fern received a phone call from Stonechild's uncle. Stonechild's uncle was asking about the cause of death, and he indicated that Neil Stonechild died from exposure to Stonechild's uncle. Fern's notes indicate that at some point he was informed Stonechild was a young offender who was unlawfully at large from his community home. His notes also log a call from St. Jarvis. Fucking balls.
Lay off the weed, buddy.
I think so. I think it's more the beer. I'm very lightweight when it comes to beer.
He's real good when it comes to weed.
Yeah. His notes also log a call from Sergeant Jarvis on December 6th. The note says, definitely seen alive, 9:30, Saturday, 24th of November. Had been to party, drank about 26 ounces. Tried to get into an apartment shortly after midnight. Snowberry Downs. All confirmed by friends who were with him. Body was well frozen. Temperature was very cold. Probably died Sunday, the 25th of November.
You're getting cold now, aren't you? I'm getting cold.
Remember, it's blowing a gale, and the wind chill is about minus 27 degrees Celsius.
The body tries very hard to conserve the energy towards the core, to the important bits of you, the heart and the brain. Yeah. That's why you can't feel your fingers anymore. Yeah. This must be distinctly uncomfortable now.
Actually, no, I'm starting to get quite chilly now. My head is seriously cold now.
Yeah.
36.5 at the moment, Peter.
Here.
36.5. Okay. If it happens quickly like this, you're very aware of getting cold. If it happens more slowly, more insidiously, then you don't tend to have as much of an awareness, and you don't tend to feel all that uncomfortable. Sometimes you'll paradoxically just start undressing, taking your clothes off once you get really cold, and that of course just is part of a downward spiral that there's no way out of.
My way out of this is to get dressed and get out of this wind.
Yeah, you're starting to shiver. Yeah. I think it's time we maybe stop this and got you warmed up now, eh?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, okay.
But wind and snow aren't the most dangerous part of a blizzard. The biggest killer is the cold. A drop of just 4 degrees in core temperature and the human body becomes hypothermic. It's a condition that Dr. Colin Grissom is an expert at treating.
A person experiencing mild hypothermia typically feels cold and they start shivering. The shivering progresses to an uncontrollable shivering.
Shivering is the body's way of generating critical heat to keep you alive. But if body temperature continues to fall, hypothermia deepens. Then the shivering stops, and that's the beginning of the end.
When you stop shivering, the body is losing its ability to rewarm itself. So it is failing. Everything slows down. Metabolism slows down. So the heartbeat slows down, the breathing slows down, and all the cells slow down, including the brain.
Left unchecked, severe hypothermia like this will lead to death.
In the declaration of coroner, he indicated that the cause of death was as exposure. He wrote natural and crossed it out and wrote accidental.
Ooh.
He noted police were still investigating the matter. Dr. Fern had also received a toxicology report in April 1991 on this matter. Unusual practice for the report was to be received by the coroner before police having a copy. It was very unusual for the police to receive the report before the coroner. This time the police received the report first and gave it to the coroner. There was no explanation as to why the police received the report first this time. Fern suggested that the police had some interest in this matter, and so the report was sent to them first.
Some interest.
Dun, dun, dun.
The coroner receiving the report was also delayed. There was no explanation for the delay either. The report indicated no drugs found, but Stonechild had a blood alcohol content of 150 milligrams in 100 millimeters, so about
what does that mean?
0.15.
Cat's alive.
So just about twice the legal limit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's very easy to get there.
Like, I'm probably there right now.
Well, Philger and I, we got like a cheapo breathalyzer.
We did.
And he and I would often in our younger years conduct races to see who could max out the breathalyzer first.
No.
Do we still have access to that?
Yeah, I know where mine is.
Go get it.
Oh, it's not here. It's my parents' place.
I think that would be some good Patreon content. See,
do me.
See who biologically, like by the numbers, can hold their booze better.
Yeah, because I probably feel the best, but I'm probably the most drunk.
We got moonshine.
Like we would sit down at the bar and the bartender would laugh at us because we just ordered drink after drink after drink and then like breathalyze ourselves.
I'm so ashamed.
To see who could get up to like point. I think the breathalyzer capped out at 0.16.
Capped out at 0.16. We'd see who could hit 0.04 first, and it was always you, and 0.08, and it was always you, and 0.16 was always me.
I am all that is man.
No, but I finally maxed out the breathalyzer more frequently than you did. I caught up.
Okay, well, I would
past you.
Like, I would literally really like to do this like all the time.
You know,
like, why are we not doing this right now?
This comes from a place that you guys doing this comes from a place of like curiosity and loving alcohol, and I can't disagree with either one of those.
No, just reckless ambition, I think.
Oh man,
no,
I'm all about reckless ambition. I've danced under that name.
I mean, of course, the note on the breathalyzer is not to be used for criminal blah 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 blah. You know, because no breathalyzer company wants to get like fucking tagged unless you're like got the like $4,000 roadside test that the police actually do and calibrate like every week. I think those things go through a calibration just to make sure that they're still given proper results. But I digress. Stonechild had a blood alcohol content according to the toxicology report of 0.15.
Yeah. And so we've seen so far that this Dr. Fern guy, he seems to be a little bit wishy-washy. He seems to be giving some mixed messages, and that's about to amplify. In a 1990 newspaper article, he was quoted as saying, "We have excluded obvious foul play as he did not have an injury of any kind." We've already learned that he has cuts on his nose.
Like Buddy did.
Yeah. He told the Inquiry that Stonechild had injuries, but would not have contributed to his death. However, in a June 2003 CBC interview, he stated that Stonechild's injuries were consistent with being beaten and dragged. So
that's a large departure from what he originally said.
Yeah. He defended this inconsistency by saying that these words were suggested by the reporter. Also, the dude totally pulled a Bill Clinton. Depending on what you mean by the word is. Like, this is a statement. The statement was true depending on how one defines the term beaten.
Oh my God! How do you beaten is like you have been beaten.
You have been beat.
Yeah. And remember, one of the theories that the police were trying to put forward as this is a plausible explanation, so don't blame us, is he got in some interpersonal disagreement with some people and they beat his ass and dragged him out there. So this sounds like he's trying to play both sides a little bit. Okay,
well, first, no one would take a kid all the way out to the North Industrial area from the West Side. Yeah. No one would do that.
Dictionary definition of beaten is having been beaten or struck.
Yeah, like pummeled with fists or struck with something.
Like a handcuff.
Or beaten with
bodily, yeah. Or
handcuffs to the nose as brass knuckles.
Yes, have had bodily harm inflicted upon you. I
Okay,
think.
quick survey. Raise your hand if you've been in handcuffs, like police handcuffs.
Like by being arrested?
Sage,
Like
really?
actual arrest, like police have applied
Police
handcuffs
have applied
to you.
handcuffs and have said you're under arrest.
Just security guard training.
What did you do?
I ran from cops when I was in high school.
Bad boys.
Really?
What you gonna do?
That's intense.
What you gonna do when they come?
They never they never booked me
Stay
or like.
tuned for
Yeah, but
another
they put you
Richard
in
Bigley
They put me in
episode
handcuffs,
on the cops.
I was kind of a badass, but I was also getting 100% in everything in high school.
Yeah, that's cool.
If you join that Patreon for just $1 a month, just maybe, you might even hear the story.
You might. I am the only one. Oh, me and Richard and I. We have an Ood story. We have a Leon story. I haven't done my story, and Richard hasn't done his
Nobody
story.
needs to know my fucking story, I tell you.
You have a very interesting story.
I have all sorts of stories.
Your story is tragic.
Oh.
So a bit more about Dr. Fern. He hadn't attended a formal coroner's meeting since he started work in 1967.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like this is like 1990 when he's being like the coroner over Neil Stonechild.
Yeah.
But he hasn't like attended a coroner's meeting since like 1967.
That was a minute ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they don't teach anything important at coroner's meetings, just stuff like
Nothing new
here's
ever-
how to better evaluate bodies. And like maybe
Nothing ever changes.
Like maybe he could have learned how to like survey a frozen body a little better if he attended one meeting after.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But so the inquiry found that he had not executed his responsibility in the Stonechild matter appropriately. So he didn't go back for further training. He didn't attend a conference. He wasn't qualified to be executing his responsibility on Stonechild.
No.
He didn't take the responsibility to continue his education. He didn't question why a 17-year-old was found in the middle of nowhere, away from his home, intoxicated, away from any bars and restaurants, missing a shoe, with a worn-out sock from walking some distance without a shoe. He did not examine Stonechild's clothing. Again, Stonechild's clothing was destroyed before it could be properly examined. And he didn't examine it for blood or other bodily fluids, like what may be present if he got like hit in the nose. Maybe he had... Nobody knows.
Oh, no, Dr. Fern.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Dr. Jack Adolph performed the initial autopsy. From 1975 to 1997 when he retired, he worked at St. Paul's Hospital as a pathologist. That's a guy who studies bacteria and viruses, like how pathogens spread and grow, I believe.
No.
Not at all. That's someone who studies dead people.
Okay, let's Google pathology.
I'm on it. Pathology is a branch of medical science that involves the study and diagnosis of disease through examination of surgically removed organs, tissues, bodily fluids, and in some case, the whole body.
Disease or injury, yeah.
There we go. So it's almost like a guy that diagnoses cause of death kind of stuff, eh?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what they are, yes.
Fuck yeah. He also did not examine Stonechild's clothing, so the coroner didn't look at it. The autopsy guy didn't look at it, and the police didn't look at it. So nobody there's so much stuff that wasn't done.
Can't imagine why.
Coincidence, eh?
Yep.
All these coincidences. Now, I'm not one to say there's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because that would not be me. But I'm thinking that there's a lot of coincidences here.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Just over and over again, the ball is dropped, and it seems to be an indigenous person every time. Weird.
Go figure.
Yeah. He told the inquiry. This is Dr. Adolph. He told the inquiry that he determined the cause of death to be exposure to cold. He reached this conclusion by ruling out other causes of death. Basically, you are found frozen in the snow, and there's nothing else to suggest a cause of death. Boom, died by exposure. He figured Stonechild would have died in 2 or 3 hours given the situation, like given the weather and the temperature and all that.
Yeah.
But there are factors that could have prolonged or shortened this. The autopsy report states that the time of death was 2200 hours, 10 p.m., November 27th, 1990. He was unable to explain how he arrived at this. He said a pathologist's time of death is often not reliable and that it was possible he had been dead since November 25th.
What?
You know,
Would you be like, I give this time of death, but fuck me, I'm not accurate. Don't even fucking listen to me.
Well, I mean, in his defense, though, I mean, you're looking at something that's a lot of unknowns after the fact.
Okay.
And you're being told to come up with an expert opinion based on the evidence face that and you're like, well, I can tell you at least this much, and you put that in. Like think of, say you washed your car.
Yes.
And you notice the big fucking gash on your bumper.
Yes.
And you don't remember hitting anything. You're the only one driving your car.
How did you get this information?
How did you, and you're looking at this gash now that you've washed your car.
Sorry, Mr.
And now
Stagemeyer.
someone's going to say, you file a claim with your insurance company. And they're going to say, well, when did this happen? Well, you don't know when the actual gash happened, but you knew last Saturday you were washing your car and then you noticed it. So you would say, well, I noticed it last Saturday, so whoever's taking your claim will put in last Saturday as the date of the loss, even though this could have happened days prior, months prior, weeks prior, who knows?
Probably.
And so, in his defense, I'm going to say that maybe, looking at the facts, he knows at least this much, and so he probably put down the most reliable information he had at the time, given
You sound
the
like
facts.
a fucking union rep for the doctor.
As a gross, closer analogy, imagine taking a steak out of the freezer and someone saying, when did you put that in there? And you'll say, well, it's frozen solid, so it had to have been within, it couldn't have been 5 minutes ago, it had to have been at least, a day ago. But other than that, how do you tell if it was a month ago or yesterday?
And stuff that doesn't freeze solid that could be used to measure degradation, like fabric and materials, will degrade in exposure over a couple days.
Right.
You'd be able to measure that, but those things were immediately destroyed. And by the time this guy got to it, like
I guess the best he could do is an ish time.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I'm sure this guy isn't a chief fighter for Indigenous rights, and all that, because he's part of that same system. But I'm saying that the initial investigation was not done correctly, so this guy really couldn't do his job correctly.
All right, I take back my initial derision.
Yeah.
To me, I think that he said that it's possible being November 25th. To me, it's he knew by 2200 hours, November 27th, 1990, he was dead.
Yeah.
But, when they say, well, it could be possible it was the 25th. Yeah, I mean, it very well could have been. He's, based on what you have, you got to make a decision. And that's what he put down.
Yes.
So
You got a frozen corpse that's been out for a few days.
who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
Could have been
I'll allow
yesterday.
it.
Could have
I'll
been
allow
2
it.
days ago.
Could
Who
have been.
knows? It could have been.
His autopsy report noted the marks on Stonechild's nose. So this is Dr. Adolph again, stating that they were abrasions. Abrasions only take off the surface layer of skin.
Road rash.
Yeah. And in comparison, a laceration cuts through multiple layers of skin. It cuts deeper.
Mm-hmm.
He testified that abrasions aren't unusual when someone dies by exposure. I learned this in first aid too. As the skin starts lowering temperature and starts stiffen up and freeze, it becomes way less pliable. So if you rub it against something, it can slough right off.
Cause more damage. Yeah.
But usually that's only the first layer of skin. So falls, stumbles, bumping against things could lead to abrasion. He indicated that the injury looked recent, but it would not be possible to determine an exact time frame of when the injury happened. He also stated that Jarvis's report that there were no signs of trauma to the body was incorrect. He said that he told Jarvis that there was no sign of traumatic death, which is a different matter. The doctor also noted in his autopsy report that there was a stone in the shoe worn by Stonechild, which was unexpected given where the body was found. He testified to the inquiry about Stonechild's blood alcohol level, indicating it may have contributed, but at a 0.15 was not linked to any sort of incapacity or coma. So it wouldn't have been the reason that he passed out unconscious, died. It wasn't blood alcohol poisoning.
Well, I mean, like I said, Philger and I, we would do it. We'd reach 0.16, which is twice the legal limit.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were still laughing it up and having a good time. It was just what you do, it's not enough to cause someone to be blackout drunk to be twice the limit.
No.
And I want to show everyone really quickly how blood alcohol concentrations affect your judgment. You may start off, have a drink, and you're starting to feel relaxed. Your intensification of mood. Then you're getting a little sedation. This is where you start to wonder, driving may not be such a smart idea. Maybe after 2 or 3 drinks, you're starting to get impaired motor skills. 0.08 in many places is an illegal level of blood alcohol concentration as far as DUIs. So things are beginning to be impaired. Not really dangerous yet. This is where things get kind of scary. Between 0.3 and 0.4, for most people who are naive to alcohol, you can start to lose consciousness. And then beyond 0.4, again, if you're alcohol naive, you can go unconscious. That's how you die.
So why does the blood alcohol level matter? Because there was a lot of suggestion that Stonechild had consumed a lot of alcohol that night and that he was intoxicated and that he drunkenly wandered out there on his own.
No, that's insane. How would you drunkenly wander all the way the fuck out there?
Yeah. And that was a
because
lot
he
of
wanted to confess at the correctional.
Yeah,
He turned
right.
himself in at the correctional. That's
Yeah.
why he got drunk and walked all the way out to the correctional from those apartments.
That would take so long.
Well, look at the clip that we played, like in episode 1 of this series. Like, that's a very common attitude. Like, just another one of these natives, like, drinking. He probably got drunk and just wandered out there. And now they're trying to bring down these good old cops. And like,
Okay, but like, hey, let's bring up the map. Okay, where was it?
Yeah, you do that.
I just want to know how long it would take to walk.
Looks like you got a whole bunch of the evidence packages that I've found too, eh? It's amazing.
Okay, well, it says an hour and 52 minutes.
To walk all the way out that way where
Yeah.
he was. So if he were walking,
Or 2 hours and 2 minutes, depending on which way you go. But it's a really
it's
fucking
2 hours to get there by foot.
Yeah, it's a really fucking long walk that I don't know
Assuming he walked directly there.
Yes, and like I don't know if you've ever been drunk, but when I'm drunk, I do not want to walk for 2 hours.
Remember that time, Leon, when we got really, really fucking drunk at the Hose and Hydrant and then we walked all the way to your place in Lakeview?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, fuck.
That's a long way.
That was a long walk from Broadway to Lakeview.
Be reminded that the medical expert had said that that somebody in this condition probably wouldn't have lasted more than a couple hours in this condition.
No.
So he probably wouldn't have even made it there.
No. Mm-hmm.
So in comes another doctor, Dr. Graham Dowling. So this is different from Dr. Adolph and stuff like that. He does a second autopsy on Stonechild. He was certified in anatomical and forensic pathology. He was also a clinical professor at the University of Alberta. Due to the passage of time, he was limited in what he could do with the autopsy. The abrasions noted in the original autopsy were no longer visible due to post-mortem decay of the body. Remember, at this point, Neil had been in the ground for years, and he had to be exhumed for this to happen. There was a darkening of the skin and a loss of soft tissues. X-rays showed no evidence of cartilage or bone fracture. No injuries were found that were not already on the initial report, and they did not find any indication of disease. There was no evidence to refute the original autopsy report. The RCMP requested 5 answers to 5 questions about Neil Stonechild's death from Dr. Dowling. Number 1.
Are they more likely to be from, like the marks, are they more likely to be from being assaulted, or are they more likely to be from falling?
Stumbling around.
Yeah, from you fucking trip over your feet, you fall on the ground, you smack your face on some grass.
Or did he get like you said,
did someone
a handcuff
use
punch
handcuffs and fucking punch you in the face?
Did a cop punch him or did the earth?
Yeah.
Yes. The earth puncher.
Number 2, are the wounds on the nose more consistent with a blow or an incised wound? Incised wounds are wounds that are usually longer than they are deep. So like longer cuts.
Yeah, you just kind of like scrape yourself. You know, you get like a paper cut where it's like longer on your finger than it is
going
deep
inside
into your skin. You know.
Number 3, are the marks on the face more consistent with a blow or a cutting force? So, like the difference between bludgeoning and slashing damage.
Yeah, so like a punch or like a slash.
Number 4, can you, Dr. Dowling, offer any suggestion as to the origin of the mark on Stonechild's right wrist shown in photo 42? So there was an abrasion on his wrist.
Let's see if we can pull it up. Are you able to find that?
Yeah. And number 5, is the blackening of the lips due to injury or to freezing?
Probably both.
Dowling's report indicated the wounds were caused by blunt trauma and not a sharp object. He indicated that he was unable to determine if it was from a fall or if it was from a blow, but in either case the injuries were minor. The snow around Stonechild was crusty and hard. So it could have come from a fall, but he would not rule out the injuries were due to an assault.
Okay.
At the inquiry, he was questioned on his report by the Council of Police Association as well as the Council for the Stonechild family. He maintained his position that he would not be able to determine, based on findings and based on photographs taken from where the injuries had been. So he wouldn't be able to conclude any findings based on the information he had.
Yeah.
He did, however, when questioned, venture that looking at a bigger picture, a man last seen in police custody with possible cuff marks on his wrists and possible cuff marks on his face, that would help him assign probabilities to what may have happened. Enter Dr. Emma Liu, a forensic pathologist in Miami, Florida, but was trained in Canada. The assistant clinical professor of pathology at the University of Miami. She was called at the request of the Saskatoon Police Service. Her experience with dead bodies was mostly in Miami, so not much.
Well, like hotter bodies.
Yeah, not much experience dealing with frozen bodies. In Miami,
like Stonechild.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, not too many frozen bodies in Miami, but she was, because of her experience, she was brought forward to give an opinion on the case. She looked at the photos of Stonechild's injuries for a few minutes and drew her conclusions.
I just want to note that this was the doctor called in by the police service to testify. So, like, you know, earlier we were talking about how the fucking police service and the police association / union were more or less there to try to defend their people.
Yes.
And so Emma Liu was basically there at the request of the police service to defend
their people.
Their people.
Yeah.
And so what this person's saying is, you know, they're not necessarily the neutral party. They're another party called in by, you know, the police service.
Let's just say that when the police hire experts, they're often not looking for objectivity.
We've all seen The Staircase.
Yeah. They're looking for somebody who's going to help defend the officer, because that's the number one. That's the number one priority in a lot of books.
Well, it's that whole forensic science thing where it's like, well, you've got your conclusion, and now you've got to try to like make the facts line up to your conclusion, and that's basically what she does.
Yeah, and because of how the legal system works, like, subject matter experts are some of the only people who can offer facts in a courtroom. So their opinions can become facts, and that's very dangerous when you have forensic science that may or may not be reliable, and, you know, flawed people, that, yeah, all that good stuff. So her opinion, so she looked at Stonechild's injuries for a few minutes and drew her conclusions. The police were also kind enough to have the photos enhanced to see if she could provide a better opinion of the marks.
Enhanced is in like those suspicious air quotes, just saying.
Good old suspicious air quotes.
Her opinion was that the photos from the scene were better to evaluate the injuries versus the autopsy photos, as the cold slowed the post-mortem process. She stated that a handcuff could have caused the injuries if you scraped it hard across the skin. It wouldn't break the cartilage or bone. The answer that she came up with was that it was caused by stems and grass on the ground. As Stonechild's face fell down on the ground, she dismissed the handcuff hypothesis, as she felt there would be a bruise from the handcuff strike. The talk to the vegetation causing injuries to Stonechild was discussed at length. She seemed to dismiss the marks on Stonechild being parallel of having any real meaning. Talks of stems, twigs, when the area didn't really have any trees. She dismissed the marks on Stonechild's wrist as being from clothing, not handcuffs.
No.
Yeah. Photos shown at the inquiry show Stonechild's body with his hands tucked inside of his sleeves, like, you know, you would do if you were cold and didn't have any gloves. I'm sure.
Yeah, like I do all the time, or like my 6-year-old son does also.
Yeah, you pull your sleeves over your hands to get them out of the cold, out of the wind.
Yep.
So how does that make any sense? The cuff of his clothing was not in contact with his wrist, and his hands were in the sleeve. If your clothing is loose enough to pull your hands into the sleeve, it's not going to be tight enough to cause injury on your wrist.
Yeah, like when you fall on it.
She said it could have been found from the shirt he was wearing. It was suggested Stonechild was wearing a t-shirt at the time of loss. She did say, upon cross-examination, that a handcuff could have caused the mark if Stonechild was resisting, which makes sense when you consider that he was about to be thrown out into the cold in the middle of nowhere by the Saskatoon police.
Yes.
She then stated that the wrist marks could have happened after death. However, then agreed with Dr. Dowling that it's difficult to place an age on these sorts of wounds.
It took a while, but I found the picture. Also, there's another picture to show you afterwards. This is Neil Stonechild's hands post-mortem.
Well, you can definitely see, like
you see the indentation of the handcuffs.
Yeah, you can see a
his
mark.
wrist. Those are exactly the same indentations that existed for literally hours after I was released by the police.
Yes. Yeah,
Like
it happens.
I literally got released from the police. Then I went to the bar to meet Philger's mom and dad, and we talked all about the marks on my wrists from the police handcuffs.
Yeah.
So those look exactly like that. Those are police handcuffs on his wrists.
And I anecdotally, that's what my marks look like too.
Anecdotally, that's what my handcuff marks look like.
And indentations like that are only filled back in through capillary action. You know what needs capillary action?
Heat.
A
heartbeat.
A heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that's why those marks are so prominent. And but you can see the very clear marks of a handcuff around his wrist. The fact that she thinks it was made by a tight sleeve.
No.
When he was
bullshit.
Yeah, when it was cold and he was probably tucking his whole hand into his sleeve.
Now, the next photo I'll show you is actually a little bit... It is a photo of a face of a dead person. So here is Neil Stonechild's face at post-mortem.
Yeah, and you see across his nose, two cuts on his nose. They are parallel, very fucking parallel.
Yes.
And now, I don't know, if you've ever sat down in a field on grass, on twigs, on leaves, and you sit down for a while and then you stand up, and you know how you got the imprints of the grass on your skin?
Your hands, yeah, wherever you've been laying on there, yeah.
Yeah. None of that shit's parallel.
No, because it's nature.
You've crushed grass and it's imprinted itself on your skin. These marks are parallel, and
they're from where the handcuffs do the swoopity thing inside the two prongers.
And using them as brass knuckles
Yeah.
to punch his face in, I guess.
I would consider those gashes.
Gashes?
If I had one of those on me, I would say I had a gash.
Yeah, well, they're definitely...
Data point of 1.
They're also far too...
parallel and made by something like that?
Yeah, straight and parallel to be from something in
nature.
in
Yeah,
nature.
that was very much the argument, that was being proposed. And this Emma, Dr. Emma, was saying, well, no, that's from nature and twigs, even though there's no trees in the area.
No.
I'm putting a smiling face back up because I can't
twigs
watch
just
that.
show up. They just sprout out of nowhere.
And they spring up very, very uniformly.
Very parallel,
Yeah, it's not like those. It's not like those ditches are manicured by the city and the companies, and there wouldn't be little trees growing inside. There wasn't any found at the scene. So we're getting to about that time where we're going to be closing out this episode. So bottom line, we talked about the RCMP coming in. We talked about them hiring some experts, some pathologists, some doctors to review, but a lot of times, by the time they got access to the evidence, Neil had been dead for years, and a lot of the original evidence had been tossed away. The inquiry found her testimony to be unconvincing. This is going back to Dr. Emma. Injury caused by twigs and grass, which happen to be exactly parallel, would be very unlikely. If you sit in the grass for a long time and stand up, there's marks on your skin from the grass, but not a lot of parallel marks. It's not consistent. And they wouldn't be parallel injuries along the nose.
No. That's a very specific location to have such harsh parallel lines. Even if you were lying face down in the grass, you wouldn't get marks like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the end of my section of the RCMP pulling in their experts. Not a lot of conclusions were drawn because a lot of the evidence had been degraded, and a lot of kind of play ball with the police opinion seemed to have been floated.
Forensic pseudoscience and that whole thing,
This is part 3. We've gone through a lot of stuff, but we're going to bring it together in part 4, the conclusion to the Neil Stonechild freezing death. For Occultae Veritatis, I'm Gallifrey.
Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
And Richard Bigley.
Not and Richard Bigley.
You're not and Richard
I'm
Bigley
not and
anymore.
Richard. Oh, yeah, we got a demon here to deal with.
Yeah.
Fuck you, hail Satan, I'm the demon.
I am going to get a priest in here, and he's going to fuck you up.
Oh, fuck
No,
your
please
priest.
don't.
I will
We
fuck
literally
your priest.
we literally pay this demon.
Seriously, get a cute one, though. I'll fuck this priest.
Fuck the priest.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Choose.
Good night.
Based out of Calgary, Alberta, the Reckless Heroes are a band that wrote a song about the Starlight Tours in 2013. I think the aggression and ferocity of this song matches the turmoil that the host felt during this episode. So enjoy Starlight Tours by the Reckless Heroes, and see you in the after show. Today, I get to give a happy update, which on OVPod is few and far between. February 18th, 2021, an event that warrants an update to our Rovers episode occurred. After spending 8 months in the cold dark of space, Perseverance, or as the OVPod hosts have lovingly started to call it, Percy, arrived on the surface of Mars. I know we talk about the dour side of humanity a lot on OVPod, but this is the kind of thing that gives me a little bit of hope. In the middle of a pandemic, in an era of unrest and political upheaval, humans were still able to send this little rover into space to explore where we can't. Percy is an extension of our eyes and ears. He's an extension of our curiosity about the universe. It's us reaching out into the stars to see what we can find. So I'm gonna end the after show here, and instead of me blabbering on for our little ending jingle, I'm going to play the control room that helped guide Percy down to the Martian surface. I hope this warms your heart. I'll see you next week, where we're gonna cover some other bullshit.
Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers. We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation. We have priming of the landing engines. Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN Safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver.
We've lost direct-to-earth tones.
As expected. As expected.
Sky crane maneuver has started. About 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.